The chaos began with a revelation no one saw coming. Whispers leaked that the DNA results for the baby might not match Mendesi's, instantly transforming what should have been a routine moment of clarity into a full-scale public explosion. The news hit the internet like a spark in dry grass fast, loud, and impossible to contain. Within minutes, fan pages, gossip blogs, live stream analysts, and Twitter threads ignited with speculation, each adding fuel to the growing blaze of confusion. Screenshots, half-truths, and out-of-context clips spread like wildfire, with some insisting they had inside sources, while others claimed the situation had been brewing for months. As the rumors evolved, theories multiplied. Some swore the paperwork was switched. Others believed the test was sabotaged. And many insisted someone in the inner circle had intentionally leaked the information to embarrass Mendesi's. Meanwhile, inside the family, tension surged to unbearable levels. Conversations became confrontational, emotions ran high, and trust became fragile as accusations flew from every direction. Mendesi's, caught between anger and disbelief, struggled to process the possibility that someone he trusted might be lying, or that the internet's relentless storm was shaping a narrative he could no longer control. Every ding of a notification, every DM, every tag from fans demanding answers only intensified the pressure, creating a volatile mix of public scrutiny and private heartbreak. Even those who tried to stay silent found themselves dragged into the drama as fans dissected their reactions, body language, old interviews, and even years-old photos, searching for signs they believed had been there all along. What began as a confidential DNA inquiry had spiraled into a spectacle with millions watching, judging and forming verdicts before the truth was even confirmed. Family members scrambled to protect their reputations. Friendships were tested, and the smallest gesture was instantly interpreted as guilt, defiance, or confirmation of the rumors. By the time the story reached its peak, the situation had evolved far beyond a DNA mature, had become a cultural talking point, a trending topic, and a digital battleground. This bombshell didn't just open a new chapter in the family's story. It cracked open old wounds, exposed hidden tensions, and created a storm that no one family or fan was prepared for. Yandy's world began to crumble the moment the rumors surrounding the DNA results exploded online, sending her into a spiral of emotional turmoil that she couldn't hide, even behind her usual strength and composure. She spent night after night pacing the floor, replaying conversations in her head, trying to make sense of how something so explosive could unravel so quickly and why she was the last to know. Sleep became impossible every time she closed her eyes. Flashes of online comments, harsh accusations, and fans tagging her in theories jolted her awake. Her phone became both her biggest enemy and the one thing she couldn't put down as she endlessly scrolled through posts, desperate to understand the full scope of what people were saying and how far the story had already spread. With every new comment calling her out, blaming her, or speculating about her marriage, her anxiety grew heavier. She felt blindsided, betrayed, and pushed into a corner, especially as fans painted her as either the mastermind behind the rumors or the woman too naive to see what was happening right under her roof. The emotional weight was crushing. Confusion mixed with anger, and fear blended with humiliation as she realized that the world she had tried so hard to keep stable was collapsing in real time. She questioned everything: her trust in Mendesi's, her relationship with the people closest to her, and the intentions of those who claimed to be friends. The pressure built to a breaking point, especially as screenshots circulated suggesting Erica might have known more than she let on. That single implication was enough to snap something inside Yandy, feeling cornered, disrespected, and emotionally stripped bare. She could no longer hold back the frustration brewing inside her. The emotional storm, combined with sleepless nights, relentless fan theories, and her own rising insecurity, pushed her to confront Erica directly, demanding truth, clarity, and accountability. This wasn't just about rumors anymore. It was about loyalty, betrayal, and the emotional scars caused by a situation that spun wildly out of her control. In that moment, Yandy wasn't the calm. Composed woman fans were used to seeing she was a wife fighting for answers, a mother protecting her family, and a woman grappling with heartbreak in the harshest spotlight imaginable. The tension that had been simmering finally erupted during the now infamous phone call between Yandy and Erica. A conversation that began with shaky breaths and ended in a storm of accusations. Raised voices and raw emotion spilling through every word. Yandy, overwhelmed by sleepless nights and the avalanche of online rumors, dialed Erica with a trembling determination, her voice already cracking as she demanded answers with a level of urgency Erica had never heard from her before. From the moment Erica picked up, the air was thick with discomfort. She hesitated, struggled to find the right words, and stumbled over half explanations as she attempted to calm the situation without fully understanding how deeply Yandy had been affected. But Yandy wasn't in the mood for vague responses. She wanted the truth, the whole truth, and nothing that sounded like deflection or damage control. Every time Erica paused, Yandy's frustration intensified, spilling into sharp questions and emotional pleas as she tried to make sense of why she was hearing whispers from the internet instead of from someone she once considered a sister. Erica, caught off guard and defensive, tried to explain that she hadn't meant for things to escalate, insisting that she too was blindsided by how fast the rumors spread. But her explanation only fueled the chaos. Voices rose, accusations flew, and moments of silence were shattered by bursts of emotion neither woman could contain. Erica's tone cracked as she tried to defend herself, while Yandy's voice wavered between anger and heartbreak, revealing just how deeply wounded she felt by the timing, the secrecy, and the internet's brutal reaction. The call spiraled into a back-and-forth volley of, "Why didn't you tell me?" And that's not what happened, echoing with years of unresolved tension that suddenly felt impossible to ignore. By the final minutes, both women were emotionally drained, breathing heavily, their voices tired and strained from trying to be heard. What started as a call for clarity had turned into a full-blown emotional explosion that left both sides feeling exposed, misunderstood, and shaken. And although they finally hung up, the chaos didn't die down, it multiplied. That single call opened the floodgates for everything that would follow, setting the tone for the confrontations, confessions, and massive fallout that was now impossible to avoid. The moment the rumors hit the internet, social media transformed into a battleground of chaos, theories, and non-stop speculation. With leaked screenshots, alleged voice recordings, and fan-made evidence boards spreading faster than anyone involved could keep up with. What began as a whisper turned into a digital wildfire as users on every platform, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and even Reddit, picked apart every detail, digging through old interviews, past episodes, and years-old drama to build their own narratives. Screenshots claiming to show private messages circulated wildly, some appearing to be real conversations, others clearly fabricated. Yet fans shared them with absolute confidence, treating unverified content as undeniable proof. Then came the alleged recordings. Short clips posted anonymously that sounded like heated exchanges between familiar voices, adding fuel to an already explosive situation. Whether authentic or manipulated, these recordings spread like gospel, shaping public opinion and escalating the tension even further. Influencers and gossip bloggers jumped at the opportunity, posting hour-long breakdowns, reaction videos, and exclusive insider updates, each one adding another layer of controversy and confusion. Comment sections turned brutal, with fans taking sides, pointing fingers, and accusing anyone even remotely connected to the situation of lying, hiding something, or playing a bigger role than they admitted. Hashtags began trending, memes exploded, and fan debates grew so intense that they spilled into personal attacks, creating an atmosphere where no one could speak without being scrutinized, dissected, or dragged. Instead of calming things down, the non-stop online chatter transformed a private family issue into a global spectacle, with millions of strangers acting as investigators, judges, and jury members. The constant circulation of half-truths, assumptions, and exaggerated claims made it impossible for the real story to surface, burying facts beneath layers of noise. Even attempts to clarify the situation were drowned out by louder, more dramatic theories as social media rewarded sensationalism over truth. The frenzy became so intense that every emoji posted, every unfollow, every cryptic quote, and every moment of silence was treated as a clue, feeding the chaos with relentless energy. In the end, the internet didn't just report, the drama amplified it, twisted it, and turned it into something no one could control, making the situation far bigger, louder, and messier than it ever should have been. The situation reached its boiling point when Yandy and Erica agreed to meet at a neutral location, a quiet lounge space chosen specifically to avoid cameras, chaos, and outside interference. Yet the moment they arrived, the atmosphere was so heavy that even bystanders felt the emotional weight pressing down on the room. Eyewitnesses later described an energy so tense it was as if the air itself was vibrating. Yandy pacing near the window with her arms folded tightly. Erica sitting stiffly at the far end of the table, her hands trembling as she tried to compose herself. From the moment their eyes met, everything they had been holding in the late-night guilt, embarrassment, the online humiliation, and the raw betrayal came boiling to the surface. Voices cracked almost immediately, not in anger at first, but in the kind of emotional exhaustion that comes only after days of feeling attacked from every direction. Erica tried to speak calmly, explaining her side with shaking hands and glossy eyes. But every attempt at reassurance only pushed Yandy further into the emotional storm she had been trying so hard to contain. Witnesses said you could see the exact moment things snapped. Yandy's voice rose sharply, not out of aggression, but out of sheer heartbreak, her hands trembling as she demanded truth and accountability. Tears streamed down her face, and as she read aloud the cruel comments fans had directed at her, comments rooted in assumptions. The rumors had created her frustration reached a breaking point. In one symbolic, gut-wrenching gesture, she hurled her phone onto the table so hard that the sound echoed through the room, the screen lighting up with hundreds of notifications that only intensified her pain. The crash wasn't just about anger. It was the physical release of days of emotional suffocation. Erica, overwhelmed and visibly shaken, stood up in tears, insisting she never intended for things to spiral this far, or to see Yandy hurting in front of her like this. Their voices overlapped, pleading, defending, breaking until both were crying openly. The confrontation becoming less about accusation and more about two women drowning in chaos created by outside forces, misunderstandings, and the pressure of the public eye. By the time the meeting ended, the emotional destruction was palpable. Nothing had been fully resolved, yet everything had been exposed. The tension, the misunderstanding, the pain, every raw emotion had finally erupted, marking this confrontation as the undeniable peak of the unfolding disaster. What began as a deeply personal conflict between Yandy and Erica quickly spilled into the wider circle of family and friends, pulling in people who initially stepped forward hoping to calm the chaos but instead found themselves tangled in the very drama they were trying to diffuse. The moment word spread that a confrontation had taken place, relatives rushed in with concern, offering advice, emotional support, and attempts at mediation, but their involvement only complicated things further. Some tried to remain neutral, urging both sides to breathe and regroup. Yet, even their gentle guidance was interpreted as taking sides. Others arrived already carrying old grievances, their presence igniting rivalries that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Conversations intended to bring clarity devolved into heated arguments as long-buried secrets, past betrayals, and unresolved tensions resurfaced with explosive force. One family member brought up an incident from years ago that everyone thought had been forgiven. Another revealed private conversations that were never meant to be shared, creating shockwaves that rippled through the room. Close friends who tried to play peacemakers found themselves accused of enabling the drama or fueling it silently. Their loyalties questioned, their intentions doubted. Group chats turned into emotional battlegrounds, with screenshots being passed around, voice notes being replayed, and everyone analyzing each other's motives. Even those who tried to stay out of the situation were dragged in when fans online began tagging them, demanding statements and pushing them into the narrative. What should have been a moment of unity in a time of crisis instead became a messy web of alliances, betrayals, and confrontations. Everyone had an opinion, everyone felt entitled to speak, and everyone believed they had a piece of the truth the others didn't. The emotional weight of the conflict grew heavier as friendships that once felt unshakable began to crack under the pressure. Relatives snapped at one another in frustration, and the overall sense of trust evaporated. Instead of bringing peace, the involvement of loved ones transformed the situation into an even larger storm. One fueled not only by the present drama, but also by years of suppressed feelings that had finally erupted. By the time the dust settled, the battle had expanded far beyond its original starting point, leaving behind frayed relationships, wounded pride, and a family divided by the very people who once held it together. The confrontation stretched on. 4 hours an exhausting emotional marathon where shouting, long stretches of suffocating silence, and moments of complete emotional collapse blended together into a storm neither side could escape. What was supposed to be a discussion about a DNA rumor transformed into an eruption of years' worth of hurt, resentment, misunderstandings, and unspoken frustrations that had been piling up quietly, waiting for the perfect moment to burst open. As the hours passed, voices grew hoarse from arguing. Accusations flew back and forth, and every old wound resurfaced with full force. Yandy cried until she could barely speak, her voice cracking as she explained how betrayed and blindsided she felt, not just by the rumor, but by everything leading up to it. Erica, equally overwhelmed, pushed back with her own grievances, unleashing emotions she had kept buried for far too long. Every time the shouting died down, a heavy, suffocating silence filled the room, an uncomfortable pause where both women stared at the floor, breathing hard, trying to gather the strength to continue. It was in those moments of silence that the weight of their complicated history settled over them like a thick fog, reminding them that this fight was never just about one rumor or one piece of information. Friends and relatives who tried to intervene were ignored or pushed aside as the emotional dam fully broke, exposing everything they had avoided addressing for months, even years. Old arguments resurfaced. Past betrayals were dragged into the light. And both women admitted truths they had never dared to say out loud. The emotional collapse came slowly, at first quivering voices, trembling hands, but soon neither could hide the exhaustion of holding on to pain that had been eating at them behind closed doors. The longer they argued, the clearer it became that the DNA drama was merely the spark. The real explosion came from a foundation already cracked by past disappointments. Jealousy, miscommunication, and a constant pressure to keep up appearances. By the final hour, the shouting had faded into broken whispers. With both women emotionally drained, sitting across from one another in a room still vibrating with the remnants of their pain, the breaking point wasn't one moment, but a series of emotional detonations that forced everything into the open, leaving them shattered, exposed, and unsure of what would come next. One thing was undeniable: nothing about their relationship would ever be the same again. When the storm of the confrontation finally subsided, the emotional wreckage it left behind was immediately apparent as confusion, tears, and a sense of fragile instability hung heavily over everyone involved. Family members who had attempted to mediate now found themselves withdrawing, uncertain whether their presence would help or exacerbate the situation, while others quietly took sides, aligning with either Yandy or Erica based on past loyalties, personal biases, or interpretations of the events that had just unfolded. The atmosphere was tense and brittle, with every glance, gesture, or comment potentially reigniting arguments that had only just calmed. Yandy retreated into her own thoughts, pacing the house and reflecting on the barrage of betrayal she felt, the exhaustion from nonstop emotional strain, and the weight of public scrutiny that refused to let her breathe. She struggled with conflicting feelings: rage toward Erica, disappointment in family members who had sided against her, and guilt for the moments where her own temper had escalated tensions beyond control. Meanwhile, Erica sought quiet spaces to process her own storm of emotions. Juggling fear of Yandy's reaction with guilt over the unintended chaos she had helped set in motion. Each replayed conversation, each missed cue, and every harsh word spoken during the confrontation lingered, magnifying the pain and uncertainty that now seemed impossible to untangle. Friends close to the family reported that both women spent hours in introspection, contemplating not only what had gone wrong, but also how the incident might permanently reshape relationships within the household. Alliances shifted subtly, with some family members expressing sympathy and support to both women, while others silently picked sides, their loyalty and judgment now colored by the drama they had witnessed firsthand. Social media chatter added yet another layer of pressure as screenshots, clips, and comments kept the conflict alive, making private reflection feel nearly impossible. The emotional exhaustion was universal, touching even those who had tried to remain uninvolved. The energy in the home was heavy, marked by quiet tension, sporadic tears, and an underlying fear of further eruptions. For Yandy and Erica, the aftermath was not simply a pause in conflict, was an unrelenting confrontation with their own emotions. The complexity of family dynamics, fate, and the reality that the fallout from this incident would reverberate far beyond the immediate argument. Each woman wrestled with vulnerability, trust, and the uncertain path forward, realizing that rebuilding bonds, repairing trust, and navigating shifting alliances would require immense patience, careful dialogue, and a willingness to confront not only each other but themselves as the sun rose on the second day. The emotional landscape of the household remained charged, heavy with the unresolved tension from the previous day. Yet it also carried the first glimmers of unexpected honesty and raw emotion that hinted at a fragile path toward reconciliation. Yandy, still reeling from the marathon of shouting, accusations, and heartbreak, approached the day with a cautious determination, seeking clarity and truth while bracing herself for more confrontation. Erica, equally drained and guilt-ridden, knew she had to navigate the morning delicately, balancing the need to express her remorse with the fear that any misstep could reignite the storm. Friends and family observed quietly as tentative conversations began, each sentence measured and every gesture loaded with unspoken meaning. Yandy's voice, though steady, carried the weight of lingering betrayal as she demanded answers and transparency, pressing for details that had previously been left vague or misunderstood. Erica responded with vulnerability, admitting mistakes, revealing the limits of her knowledge, and attempting to explain intentions that had been misinterpreted, her own emotions surfacing in the form of trembling words and tearful pauses. Moments of silence punctuated the dialogue, thick with tension yet oddly cathartic, allowing both women to reflect on the words exchanged and the emotions behind them. These pauses became opportunities for reflection, a rare chance to process not just the events of the previous day, but also the underlying patterns of miscommunication and hurt that had led to such an explosive confrontation. Family members who witnessed the interactions reported that the tone, while fragile, was markedly different from the chaos of the first day. There was a willingness to listen, even amid lingering anger and skepticism. Yandy admitted fears of betrayal and vulnerability, articulating the depth of her pain and how the rumors had magnified every insecurity. Erica, in turn, conveyed sincere remorse and a desire to rebuild trust, acknowledging the emotional damage caused and expressing hope that dialogue, honesty, and patience might restore some semblance of balance. The day was punctuated by small but meaningful gestures, careful eye contact, gentle reassurances, and the cautious offering of explanations that had been previously withheld or misunderstood. While progress was tentative and the emotional environment remained delicate, these moments of honesty marked a pivotal turning point, proof that even amidst chaos, raw emotion and openness could begin to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. By evening, both women seemed emotionally exhausted, yet quietly determined, aware that while the journey toward trust would be long and uncertain, the willingness to speak candidly and face their feelings hadn't offered the first real hope for resolution. The DNA revelation left an indelible mark on the family, creating cracks in trust that seemed deeper than anyone could have anticipated, and casting a long shadow over the relationships that once felt unshakable. Yandy, Erica, and Mendices now faced a reality where every word, every gesture, and every interaction carried heightened significance. Weighed down by the emotional wreckage of recent confrontations, for Yandy, the feeling of betrayal lingered. A constant ache, reminding her that even the closest bonds could be tested by secrecy and miscommunication. Erica struggled with guilt, fear, and the pressure of public scrutiny, knowing that even her best intentions had been interpreted as deception, and that her every move would be dissected by fans and family alike. Mendices found himself caught in the crossfire, torn between loyalty, concern, and disbelief, unsure how to support Yandy without alienating Erica, while simultaneously processing his own sense of hurt and shock. Family dynamics shifted subtly but irrevocably, with relationships once taken for granted now under intense examination. Even minor interactions risked reopening old wounds or igniting new conflicts. Friends and relatives observed from the sidelines, offering advice and attempting mediation, yet the tension remained palpable, leaving many wondering if the family could truly regain its previous sense of cohesion. Social media amplified the pressure, creating a virtual courtroom where every text, every post, and every reaction was analyzed, adding layers of anxiety and complicating private reconciliation efforts. Amid the emotional exhaustion, small steps toward understanding and rebuilding trust emerged. But they were tentative, fragile, and easily threatened by lingering doubts or misinterpreted intentions. The day-to-day reality became a delicate balance, striving to communicate openly while guarding against misunderstandings, attempting to heal personal wounds while managing the relentless scrutiny of an invested public. The question now loomed larger than ever. Could Yandy, Mendices, and Erica navigate the turbulent waters ahead, rebuild what had been broken, and restore trust that had been shattered so publicly? Or had the revelation permanently altered the foundation of their family, leaving lingering resentment and caution in its wake? The future was uncertain, the path to reconciliation steep and precarious, and every decision, every interaction, and every word spoken would carry the weight of the past, testing the resilience, patience, and commitment of all involved. Fans and insiders alike were left to watch, speculate, and hope that amidst the chaos and heartbreak, the family might find a way forward, except that some damage may never fully heal.